Tonight's topic is the American Dream dead? My co-hosts tonight are Liberty and Rush. This is Ku and Luke. In the 50s and 60s, America had one wage earner. You get a big house, 2 cars, 1 car, picket fence, no worries about bills whatsoever, a good retirement, you could hold one job till you die. Fast forward to 2016, where everybody's barely surviving. Husband and wife are working, sometimes part-time jobs. There's no full-time jobs out there. Health insurance is hard to come by now because of Obamacare and other things. Millions upon millions of people are on food stamps or food programs because they can't afford food. And you have to ask yourself, what happened? You know, when one person could have a job for all their life, not worry about anything at all, have more than enough money, they could take vacations to Hawaii, Florida, the South, and still money left over. What happened to the American dream, folks? When you could have a good job, most of those good jobs are overseas now, where they pay people half of what they paid here. Liberty, what happened to the dream? It's become a nightmare.
Howdy, Luke. I appreciate you having me on. This is Liberty. That's a good question, and it kind of depends on what your definition of the American dream is. When you told me that you were going to do a show on this topic, I asked around a little bit, did a little bit of research, and I think what the overwhelming consensus is starting off, ending up with more than you started off with, like as far as financials and material items and things like that. So the American dream sounds like it's a financial dream, and it's a pretty good pitch. I think it was propaganda. I think I didn't look up when the exact phrase "the American dream" came into being, but I think it's one of the early American propaganda themes of you can come here and do what you like, specifically because of things like freedom of religion and non-oppression based on religion and things like that. It was a pretty good, America is and was a pretty good stage to get started economically. Pretty much anybody can come here and start a business, if they can fill out some paperwork and save some money. So, and this isn't necessarily a European-centric notion. It's not white people come here and become successful. That's kind of, part and parcel of America, is that anybody from anywhere, be it India, China, Somalia, wherever, you can come here, earn a living wage, and do better than most of the people on the planet. So I personally, I say that the American dream is alive and kicking, and is doing really well. It just depends on who you think the American dream is for and what you think. God, Lord, motorcycle driving by. Sorry about that. And what you expect out of it. So yeah, I think the American dream is there. If you put in enough, you can get more than you put in back if you're smart about it. Of course, there's conspiracy laden themes that run through that of, corporations buying politicians, but I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Yeah, but Liberty these days, though, if you get a factory job, it's usually about close to minimum wage, maybe 2 hours over that. Before, in the 50s and 60s, you got a factory job, you were set for life. You got a great wage. I mean, you could buy the house of your dreams. Nowadays, you scramble around for service jobs. You have people working at McDonald's who have college degrees because there's no other jobs out there anywhere. All the good jobs move overseas because of greed. The companies want to make more money instead of paying people here a good wage and avoiding the unions. They went over there. You can pay people $2 an hour to make goods. They could pay somebody over here $17 an hour. Things have changed. Back in the 50s and 60s, everybody had no more enough food and could afford it. Nowadays, you're on a food program and you're barely surviving at all. You see, the American dream is still around, though, but it's not like it used to be, though. I mean, it's not at all. Look around you. There's unemployment everywhere. There's layoffs from IBM and other companies in the thousands. I mean, economy's not good anymore. I mean, and as for 401ks and pensions, good luck trying to find one in these days. Same thing with health insurance. I mean, it's not like it used to be at all. What do you think, Rush? Is American Dream dead, or is there still hope somehow? I'm not seeing it at all.
Hi, everybody. This is Rush. Uh, to tell you what, Luke, I think the dream itself, as Liberty pointed out, it's still alive. It depends on your interpretation and who you are and what you plan to do with it. Uh, Granted, I've been surrounded by a lot of people throughout the years that have come to this country seeking that dream. And the value they place on that is immense. Uh, for someone like yourselves that have been here and see it kind of diminish, has it been kind of shoved to the side to meet their needs? Because we're Americans, we're supposed to be self-reliant. We're tough. We're patriotic. We're all about that. That's what people look to us for, that confidence node. And I'm not talking Hollywood because that's a totally different story. But when you value your placement in life and put yourself in this situation, uh, great things can happen. But on the other hand, if you've been here a while, like we have, seeing those diminish, there is some jealousy. There's some animosity when it comes to foreigners coming in. I know that's a big issue right now around the world. People being displaced and because of circumstance and whatnot. Uh, we'll have to wait and see how that's going to affect you if your neighbor next door, has a brand new car. They come from a country that you know nothing about, but they're living a dream, and you're going, what the hell?
To give you a personal example of why I think American Dream's dead. Okay, I was 18 years old, out of high school. I had pretty good grades. I wanted to go to college. And there was a company about 40 miles from me who was hiring, Motorola. They built cell phones. And if you got in this you've got this job, you're set for life, basically. They even said so during the interview. It's like, yeah, I come to Motorola, sign up, pay a good wage, good benefits, give you stock options. So I applied and I got the job. I was all excited, I said, I'll bypass college. Dumb mistake. Anyways, 7 years later, I'm making good money. For 18 years old, I was making $40,000 a year making cell phones. Okay? And then 7 years later, the plant closes down. And why? Because everything was switching over to digital, and Motorola wanted to stay with analog, and they wanted to do what they wanted to do, basically. And a company over in Europe, Nokia, took over. Plant closed down, and I was left looking for jobs, basically. And Motorola has actually built one of their plants in our country to save on costs, like many companies have done, which is wrong in my opinion. I mean, it's greed. Instead of paying Americans a good wage, good benefits, they rather make more money. The CEO and his cronies, like going overseas and pay somebody $2, $3 an hour to make cell phones. We were paying somebody $15 an hour back in the States to make them. And everything went down from there. And my co-host Liberty has a comment real quick.
Thanks, Luke. I wanted to comment on the notion of a greedy corporation, and I do totally understand from a civilian citizen perspective of out of control corporations and globalization and things that they're dipping into that aren't necessarily in the nation's best interest. But one, as a former business owner, what someone can consider a greedy company could also equate to good business sense, and in the form of going to a place where there are less regulations, and to be noble, there is not any nobility in the business circle. I mean, you either make money or you don't make money, and as soon as somebody figured out that they can go to China and make a bunch of money because they have shit standards for human human rights over there, that's the natural progression. I think we're expecting too much out of people, A, and corporations, B, to think that they're not going to automatically gravitate to places where they pay people less and make more money. So I think that by some of the things that has made the country great, which is regulations in some aspects like minimum wage, has also cost us some business, and to take it out on businesses that are trying to make money, like that's their one and only stated intended purpose, is expecting too much from a corporation and the people that's in it, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, but I'm all for cutting costs and make more profit, though, but I think you should stay in the country you're in, though. You shouldn't be going over to an Asian country where we can pay people pennies on the dollar to make shoes, or dollar wages, basically. Something you pay someone in America $20 an hour. They're taking jobs and they're leaving the country, basically. To me, that's wrong. Yeah, you want to make as much profit as you can, though, but you also care about the people who are working for you, too. I mean, look at the way Walmart treats their employees compared to how Costco treats their employees. Who would you rather work for? Costco pays a living wage. Walmart pays slave labor, basically. To me, it's just greed. If I had a big company, I would care about my employees a little bit. Yeah, I want to make money for myself and have a good life. I want my employees to have a good life, too. And that's one of the problems here, is that we got caught up in this delusion called the American Dream, and we got to be better than the Joneses. I got to have a better car than my neighbor. I got to have a better TV than my neighbor. And America's got caught up in greed way too much. I think that's our downfall, basically, too, because we're too materialistic in this country compared to countries overseas. Go ahead and retort if you like, Liberty.
Thanks again. Well, if we take a look at some emerging markets, and this is kind of an national economics point, specifically when we look at India, we've helped India out quite a bit, and I say we, like the royal corporate we, specifically places like Microsoft, have done extensive work training and employing people in India, where there's quite a bit of financial inequality, we'll say. And they have what's a situation that they called Made in India, which is where I read this in a thread on Lunatic Outpost, the forum that we all frequent and whose chat room we're broadcasting the show from. $7 phone made in India, and under the Made in India Act or proposition or whatever it is, they only employ Indians and they don't ship their jobs overseas, which is ironic in the very least, and a bit of a slap in the face after we've helped them develop their economy and bring technology over there. So I don't think I think it's reasonable to expect people that run corporations which utilize national resources to stay loyal to that region. But that's a moral compass, that you can't really instill in anyone or expect somebody at a business to do. And so there are other examples and precedents around the world of nations that take on help from other nations but don't give back at all. And I think that when we look at a situation like that with the American worker in mind, then we've been totally shit on, and it's horrible.
I agree with you. I mean, even if the wage thing alone, though, even our benefits are going downhill. It's hard to find any company that has like a 401k plan or a pension plan anymore, including health insurance and dental and other good benefits, I'm lucky enough to work for a somewhat okay job where I'm unionized, basically, where I still get a pension and limited health insurance, and I get paid holidays and vacation time. But it's not like they used to be, though. The unions are not as strong as they used to be. And in some ways, though, the unions did hurt some companies. Look at Hostess. They kept paying people wages they couldn't afford to pay them and benefits. They were losing money, and they had to sell their company. They kept voting for new contracts, and they couldn't get one because, I'm for unions, though, but you also play it smart too. They can't pay people more than what money is coming in. And that's the problem with some of these companies and why they fell. These unions demanded so much money and benefits, and the company couldn't pay it basically because there's enough profit involved. You got to do according to what you make, more or less. And Liberty says the market should dictate wages. Yes and no. Like I said, I'll use Walmart and Costco again. Two very big companies. Costco can pay their employees a living wage, a very good wage, and Walmart pays them crap, basically. The Waltons made so much money from the Walmart stores, and Mr. Walton never envisioned, treating their employees like shit, basically, and when he died and left it to their kids, They changed things a little bit. I mean, Russ, do you notice a difference between, say now and 20 years earlier when it comes to benefits and wages?
Well, thanks, Luke. By comparison, though, what I was doing 20 years ago and what I could be doing now, since I do have a bit of a condoldrum, but looking back at what I was making then, that was back in the 90s when things were being ramped up, I guess at the last point, because we've seen such a steady decline in just the atmosphere of the home and what we've been dealt with, and how we're not going to recover from so much of this, because I think so many people have been led to believe that it's still okay. And this is where the dream is, it's cloudy now.
Gymnasium, what's your take on this? Is the American dream dead?
Hey, can you guys hear me? Testing, 1, 2. They get in, they start interning, and they just come up through the political system, much like our president today. Never held a job in the private sector. Didn't have to send out resumes to companies. Didn't have to, beat feet and get out there and put in applications and things of that nature. It was just always whether it was a foundation or a government job. So you have a whole bunch of people that keep blaming them, but we keep re-electing them. And it would be refreshing to sweep them out, or at least begin that process, and create an environment where it's a good thing to do business in the United States of America again. And it isn't for a myriad of reasons. Labor is such a monster. It's a dinosaur, and it you have people that are. We always talk about like Occupy Wall Street. That whole movement always talked about Wall Street, and they were mum on organized labor and what's happening at the top tier. If you know what's happening in the Midwest right now to the Teamsters, and how these people worked forever, for a long time, and they had these pensions that were promised, and their union leadership is now skimming off the top, giving them significant reductions, basically saying, we don't have it. And what they did is they misappropriated their funds. There's irresponsibility all over the place. But when it comes to the American dream, I think that people are trying to recapture it now through tech and telling all the young people, hey, you got to go to school, you got to get into a good college. And we don't have trade schools anymore. We have a bunch of people that are learning how to write the latest app or whatever, and that's where we're focusing people on. But the craft of working with your hands and being able to create something from scratch is being swept aside, and we're farming that out overseas. And it sucks, because those people are so valuable, the people that can actually create and make things with their hands, and that we can manufacture. And I love hearing about stories when the United States could literally, we didn't have to import anything, and we were an exporter, and our whatever goods it was, we competed globally for it. So now it's to the point where we've pushed all these businesses out, and the American dream is anemic. Anyway.
And nobody's that kind of money anymore in the emergency room. And it adds to the cost, and keeps going up and up and up. Like I said, today healthcare is a joke. If you have Obamacare, some hospitals even refuse that now. They won't accept it. You go over to Canada. Canada has a real good healthcare system, and it's more or less free. Why can't ours be the same way? Healthcare system is a show in itself, basically. So many things are messed up with it right now. But I mean, yeah, you can get healthcare done. You go to the emergency room, then you'll be paying for it for the rest of your life, basically. Where did we go wrong with the healthcare system, too? I mean, I don't get it. Everything in this country seems to be messed up now. The economy, healthcare, even food. The price of food's through the roof. And most people can't afford to get food, so they're on a food program. EBT cards, food stamps, food cards, food pantries, and everything else. We're supposed to be one of the most producing countries of food in the world, and we can't even feed our own people, it seems like. We have so many more homeless people in this country than anywhere else in the world, it seems like, too. But hey, are starving to death, but we will take you in your Syrian refugees, give them a house, a car, find them a job. Whatever happened to take care of your own people first? We used to do that here in America. Not anymore. We're sending millions of dollars of aid over to North Korea so they can eat too. We're helping the whole world and we're ignoring people in our own country, basically. There's so many homeless
different points, and I wanted to add something also. Our people mentality, and independently from
what the dream is, comes in that category of separating ourselves from doing the work so we can do other stuff that we like to do. But now we've got a world platform to work off of, and we've had that for 100 years, okay, give or take a couple decades, simply because we came into our own as the Americans that we represent ourselves to be. And the animosity of having new people come in and take our jobs, no, they're not here to take our jobs. They were already sent away. These people are here because where they were at really sucked, or their life was taken over by robots. So I'm getting back to what Supertramp was talking about, or had posted. In reference to that, we've kind of undermined ourselves by the American dream by creating more of keeping us into that loop of the American dream, where we have the house of the future. It kind of takes care of itself, so we can just have fun doing whatever it is that we enjoy doing. But the reality of that is that we've kind of overtaken our own mark, in my opinion.
That had to do with services, citizens' place in so many different areas of our society. It competes. Illegal immigration has had a negative effect on healthcare. It's had a negative effect on the education system. It's had a negative effect on the penal system, and it's brutal, and it's something that has to be dealt with if we want to get the American dream back, or a teaspoon of it. Illegal immigration, it has to do with being pro-citizen, and I think when we get back to citizen empowerment, if we ever do, then perhaps we'll get this dream back. One other thing, though, I wanted to say about unions, because I'm not anti-union at all. However, what I do think is a mind-blower about what's happening, and I think it has to do with, it ties into immigration, ties into empowering, particularly a Democrat Party, is that the union is on, particularly like the SCIU, is on a massive recruitment to unionize, like, for example, fast food restaurants. Human beings to serve coffee that you sell for maybe $1.50. You pay them $15 an hour to have to do this, or to make that hamburger, or whatever it may be. This is incredible that we're doing that, and that people, are going, yeah, we need to pay these people a living wage. Well, think about it from the other side, of what the product you're providing, and should that human being be making that much money to do that? And so, yeah, the entry-level jobs, they weren't meant for adults coming to the United States of America to compete with and take these jobs, and now young people are competing with adults. Particularly, I live in Los Angeles. Youth unemployment is huge because they're competing with adult non-citizens that came to the U.S. for something better, but really what they're doing is taxing the system.
Let me add to that, Gymnasium. Entry-level jobs are set entry-level. You work your way up the ladder, basically. You got wages as time went on. You don't go to McDonald's and demand $15 an hour to take orders. I used to be a manager at McDonald's. It was a shit job. It had good benefits, but it was crap, okay? And I hate to say it, though, but those employees are not worth $15 an hour taking orders. Management, yes, they're worth $15 an hour, but not, I think you should pay a little bit more, though. I mean, the CEO makes millions of dollars a year in bonuses alone, but maybe you have an incentive plan or something, but you don't start off with $15 an hour taking orders or flipping a burger, basically. It was never meant for that, like you said. You know, entry level. It's your entry level. It's where you start at. It shouldn't be, everything handed to you on a silver platter because you're demanding it. It doesn't work that way, And people nowadays, they don't have just one job. They have 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet now, I mean, we're not as strong as we used to be. And let me give you an example. Education. We used to be one of the greatest places in the world to get an education. Okay, the best colleges, best education in high schools, and now we're like bottom of the list. If you've ever been on Facebook before, and you saw how some of these kids talk and type on there, it's like I can count a potato basically. And that's how bad it is. The grammar is horrible. I mean, some of their ideas of science are horrible too. Look at some of these young kids are breaking the flat Earth theory for one. Okay, and not this bullshit theory that was thrown out hundreds of years ago. I just want to talk about it because it's cool. It's the same thing. Well, yeah, man, I believe in the flat Earth theory. I believe in this and that, and it's horrible. I see some of these kids coming now in my workplace, and they're not educated at all. They have a high school diploma, but they're not educated. Our school system has failed us. I don't know where we went wrong in our school system, though, but I remember when it first started declining when I was younger, and Japan was taking over, basically, and there were harder classes over in Japan, and they were pushing their student child and other bullshit, And then now we have these Common Core classes. Oh, my God. I don't get me started on those at all. Where would we go wrong in gymnasium and education,
Well, it's another thing that's taking place is that everybody wants to, we've been hearing for years, especially in the alternative community, about problem, reaction, solution. Well, that's now swept across. We want the government to react and to solve all of our problems, and we no longer want to engage. We want that automated push button, reaction all through life, and no one wants to do anything about our local communities. And when it comes to schooling, parenting, I mean, parents are so wrapped up. You mentioned social media a little bit. They're hooked. We had dinner the other night with a few people, and it was a mind blower. 2 of the people at the table could not keep their mobile phone off of the table. So these parents are totally engaged, and it was all about Facebook, and it's stupid. And a lot of parents they have their shows. They want to DVR their schedule for night, so they DVR their life away, and then during commercials, they're on social media, and they want their kids to get the hell out of their face. So what they do is hand them a device, move away, and
Rush for Liberty. Go ahead.
Well, actually, what Jim was talking about, I find this really disturbing myself because of how we were brought up at a certain time, years ago, decades ago, when as things are transpiring through a lot of the influx of humanity that came to America, because it's come in stages. And this most recent one being the IFO fad, and people are I want to say people, because we're talking about specific individuals that are caught up in that, and the rest are going like, well, I don't need that. From Korea, from Japan, mostly of Asian countries because of my interest and backgrounds, but they went back to their own countries to take back with them that American dream idea to their own spot in time and history for themselves. So a part of that has a lot of merit when you think about people coming here and taking away what's rightfully ours as Americans. No, America is about as good as they make it. And
blame, but I would definitely say that there is some a higher quality food than what I would probably buy, reasonably at the grocery store. So I think that if we worked a little tighter, I mean, that's something that we had 100 years ago or 150 years ago that we don't have today, which is an overwhelming amount of family farmers that are providing food for their community, which grows ties within the community because that's just how people are. They get to know each other with things like that. The only places that we can kind of conglomerate outside of work are either places of worship or bars, more or less. I mean, if you're every other thing, you're doing something. Like if you're going to the store, which is a pretty common occurrence, you're going to the store to buy shit, so you're not really sitting around and bullshitting with your neighbors or whatever. So I think that's something that we can control as citizens, as people. We can control our interaction with one another, with us helping one another, shouldering responsibilities like food and saving money, so we don't have to make as much money as they do in other countries where they still have local farming and stuff like that to take care of whatever industry has moved in.
But
go ahead, Luke.
to be brief, Rush, let me add to what Gymnasium said about the iPhone and the Facebook generation now. When I was younger and I came home from school, get out of the house. Go play outside. Go play with your friends. Get out of the house. I want you in the house. We have things to do in the house. And, nowadays, here, Johnny, here, Sally, here's your iPhone. Go talk to your friends on Facebook in your room. Oh, no. Luke, get outside, mow the lawn, tend to the garden, do your chores, and nowadays everybody's so scared to discipline their children because, they might get visited by the government, whatever. Or you can't spank your kids anymore because it's child abuse. Let me tell you something. I came from an Italian family. I got my ass beat when I was a kid when I did something wrong. I got it from my mom, I got it from my dad. My dad got home, basically, But I was not inside the house after school. I was outside doing chores, outside with my friends. But nowadays, all the kids now don't go outside anymore. They're on their computers, they're on their phones, Facebooking, Twittering, whatever else they do nowadays. I mean, if anything ever happened where the grid went down, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves. We wouldn't know how to grow anything. We wouldn't know how to do shelter. Everything we know is because of the cell phone. It's a cell phone generation now. I mean, don't get me wrong, the internet's a very good thing. It's the best thing humanity's ever done. You can be anywhere on the planet and get any kind of information online. All the knowledge of humanity is online. It's accessible by a simple cell phone, a computer. But we lost our way, basically. We don't know how to live outside the grid, outside the internet. We're glued to it. And it's dumbing us down, basically. There's no social skills anymore. We interact with everybody through the cell phone, through texting, through Facebook. There's no personal communication anymore, one-on-one. It's sad. I mean, we have a great thing here. We're abusing it for stupid things, Oh, meet me on Facebook, or let me show you my kitty picture, cats LOLs, instead of learning stuff online, which is supposed to be meant for. I think the American dream is being dumbed down a little bit, and that's my adding on for Gymnasium's comments. Rush, go ahead, and after that, Liberty, you may go.
Well, no, you had a good point about that. It's been diminished for us. I mean, the ones that have been here and experienced the changes, but for those that are still coming in, especially what's happening now, a lot of what's been not in the news has been about what about the refugees from the warring states over there in the Middle East. We haven't heard about those coming here. We've heard about what they've done in Europe and how disruptive they've been and all this, and how much of that is, take your pick. They're looking for that American dream too. It sounds like, it's all fluff and pillowy, but there's a factor into it. How do you value yourself when you want to do good, to grow and be a part of a community? Because we're talking about, the lack of communication that we're having. It's all digital now. Nobody's got the time to talk to anybody, and that's why I find the chat here so, relevant, or a lot of big words I can think of, that validates that dream I have of being a part of a community and sharing what you have, and being a part of something bigger. That's the American dream in my mind. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about that. I think 50 years ago, people were proud to be American immigrants. I think they were proud to be Americans. I think the idea of assimilation was a lot more digestible for, new citizens. I think that necessarily we've gotten into the cycle of celebrating diversity, while kind of back in the 50s and in that era it was more of a celebration of unity, uh, for better or for worse. So as we move into celebrating this new diversity, we also kind of hit speed bumps of incompatible cultures and the American identity itself, whatever that may be, kind of, you know, giving up the ghost and taking on the like brand of different religions in different countries. I mean, we've got every major city has a Chinatown, and there's all kinds of little like, I hesitate to use the word minority, but I guess that's like common courtesy or the most PC word, but like several minority-oriented little sections of towns and stuff. So um, assimilation off the board for most people. It's difficult sometimes to even manage conversation with people. But I'm not trying to be xenophobic. Being an American, it's part of the package that you're going to meet people from other countries. Another thing that I wanted to mention real quick before I go on at the jaw too much, comments on kids on devices and Facebook and the video games and stuff like that. There's also, we don't have the same neighborhoods that we had in the 50s and even, I guess, I grew up in the generation, I'm 42, and I was of the generation of partially computers, because there wasn't an internet when I was growing up or anything like that, and you had like really shitty graphic games and stuff, but it was technology, so we didn't care and we didn't know any better. So, and cable television took out a ton of Gen Xers that just stayed at home and watched MTV and Cinemax and whatever, was generated on what was 50 channels and then 100 channels, now 1,000 channels or whatever it's up to. So it's not like it's a fairly, with this new smartphones and shit like that we're necessarily diverted from going outside. I guess it really just depends on, your upbringing. Also, like I said, these aren't the same neighborhoods as they were 50 years ago or 30 years ago, even 20 years ago necessarily. Even like to be worried about the police, like your kid just going outside and getting into trouble just being a kid is like really a real possibility, and like getting in real trouble because they're handing out jail sentences and stuff like they're cotton candy to people, and God forbid your kid should get caught with drugs or whatever. He's in the system for life. It's like a 16-year-old kid that smokes a joint or something is now, going to be Mr. Criminal for the rest of his life, possibly. So there's other things. There's other reasons that people are nervous about sending their kids out into the streets. I don't think it's necessarily a total reliance on devices to keep kids entertained any more than it has been since Howdy Doody or MTV or, Facebook. Also, you've got both parents working, so that's also a portal for them to communicate pretty regularly with their kid, which is a positive to some of this technology. Both parents have been working since most of the 70s. If you're in any way self-reliant in the United States, you had a two-worker family, and they're bringing home shit. The reason why they've got to have two people working is because the wages haven't gone up to meet the inflation that the price of the products have gone up to. So there's all kinds of problems. It's all interdependent on a lot of different things. It's complicated and sophisticated, and it's an ever-changing landscape. So I don't know if it's easier to try and fix it or observe it, but both seem to be. I mean, just keeping up with what's happening is tough enough.
So for about 50 minutes, we addressed the problems of the American dream, how it's dead, dying. But how do we fix it now, though? Is there a way to fix it? Companies go overseas. Do you fine them for going overseas? Give them a penalty. If you're going to move your factories and go overseas, you get a penalty, a huge penalty. And most of these corporations don't pay taxes anyway. They have so many things, loopholes they can go through not to pay taxes. You and I have to pay taxes. These Fortune 50, Fortune 500 companies don't pay any taxes at all. There's loopholes everywhere for them. From these congressmen and from special interest groups. How do you fix the education system? How do you fix the healthcare system? How do you fix the economy? Can it be fixed? Are we truly screwed here, or was the American dream a pipe dream to begin with? Was it an illusion? What do you think, Rush?
Well, thanks, Luke. Giving some thought while you were talking about it, I still have a dream when it comes to what I want to do for myself and how that's going to impact people. Because that's really, truly the idea that the dreams come from is, how are you going to, make your situation or the people you're involved with, family, loved ones, whatnot, make it better for them. And understandably, what we're facing, it's detrimental. It's difficult. As I was typing in earlier, the system is somewhat rigged, as you said, loopholes and things that give a shadow of a doubt of really what's important. And I think where most people go wrong is wanting to follow that. But unfortunately, if you want to stay in the game, you got to follow that. For myself, that's a different story. But to be a part of that new grandioso idea that's it's still there. People are still dreaming that, we can make things better. And it still happens on an individual basis. It's not, because, we're all worldly in that respect. And now we're facing those individual dreams, because back then, there weren't so many people. The dreams were huge. That's made us to where we're at now. And, of course, unfortunately, people have manipulated that for good and bad. But we still have to face the facts of what makes our dreams reality today. And that's an individual base.
Well, I like the idea of the American dream has to do with like a sense of self-reliance and making it for yourself. That's part of the package of the American dream, I think. If we took a look, there's ways that we could be a lot more effective with the way we use our resources in America, the way the government uses resources, since those are effectively our resources also. If we wanted to create jobs, the inconsistency between the politicians working for corporations and the politicians working for American people, there needs to be like some harmony in that. For instance, you could legalize marijuana, put a lot of people to work, at the same time create a reasonably inexpensive way for people to treat illnesses that might not want to or be able to afford health care, or necessarily want to get on a whole load of pills because they're a little nervous. There's not any reason necessarily why marijuana or cannabis is still illegal outside of our politicians being bought and paid for by Big Pharma, which has a huge stake in not letting any type of natural, first of all, opening the floodgate to any type of natural solution for medicine, and B, that medicine being marijuana, which has a shitload of uses. It's like, the Swiss Army knife of painkillers and meds in one. We could tax churches. That would bring in a ton of income from people who live. I would say like the top 1% of people in churches live a hell of a lot more lavishly than like our top 1% of politicians, and it probably rivals the top 1% of corporation owners. So this is like a huge, to use the elephant in the room metaphor, that nobody's even batting an eyelash at, is the billions and billions and billions of dollars that churches make and pay absolutely no taxes on. And it's just, so in some cases, it's so frivolous that it's a con. It's not even funny. So I think those jokers need to pay up too. And the overwhelming amount of money that we spend on the military budget, if we shrunk that to be, even in half, you could probably go 2/3 and still be, entirely overgunned for the next 5 nations, all of which are allies combined. So that saves money. That saves money on taxes, on government paychecks, on in a ton of different ways. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we could be creative. Right now, we're coming out of a situation where we just like blindly trusted the government to take our, to represent our best intentions because we had this huge historical directive of badass people in government, and then we figured out after a while, oh my gosh, these guys are all scumbags. We need to clean house, or at least we are in the process of figuring that out. And you could thank some of that on technology for all of us to be able to communicate and stuff. And I appreciate you having me on the show and letting me communicate, Luke. And I'll hand it back to you now. This is Liberty, and y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Liberty. You're always good with the political stuff, and that's not my thing. I bring the woo, and to be honest, I can't squeeze any woo out of this show at all. Unless you want to go to like this is pre-planned, the destruction of America, to usher in the one world government kind of woo. I can do that if you like. But was this pre-planned? I mean, the destruction of America, it seems like, the degradation of the healthcare system, the failing of the education system, shipping jobs overseas, or just plain greed, basically. I mean, these companies going overseas because it's cheaper, to make more money. Healthcare system was screwed up by insurance companies. I mean, we could touch on that a little bit too, though. I mean, that's a big thing. But if we have an education, though, I don't get that, though. Why do we lower standards so much? And now we have people getting awards just because you played the game, You're supposed to get awards for winning the championship. But now, here, Johnny, here's an award just for trying, There you go, kid. And where's the incentive for doing better then? If you get awarded for just doing effort, and not for doing your best, I did school programs after school, and I got awards because I was good at stuff, not because I just showed up and, just played the game a little bit, He's upset now, Johnny's crying, give him a little award for showing up. He did a good job today just by, throwing the ball against the wall or something. Here's a gold star, There's no standards anymore, There's no pushing people like there used to be, I was in a class one time for English in high school, and my teacher saw my reading score level because I had high scores in junior high of my reading level. I had a college level reading level in junior high. So my English teacher said, I know your grades. You're just trying to skim by my class. If you don't ace my class, I'm going to fail you. I know what you're capable of. And of course, I aced this class, just because I could. But there's no pushing anymore. And if you try to push a kid to do better, then your parents come in and you're being too hard on them. It's discrimination, you're discriminating against my kid. He's doing the best he can. No, your kid's not doing the best he can. He's on his damn phone half the class and he's not paying attention. Because of lawsuits and everything else, we got to coddle those kids a little bit. Oh, it's okay, here's an award, here's a star. Do better next time, I'll pass you anyways, you kind of tried. That's our problem, There's no standards anymore. Everybody's too politically correct, everybody's too worried about hurting people's feelings all the time, and here we are. Other countries are better educated than us. All the European countries mainly, Asian countries definitely. We used to be number 1, number 2, number 3 in schooling. Now we're like at the bottom of the list, number 30, 31, 32. And our system's failing us. And like Gymnasium said earlier, there's no trade schools anymore. You can go take a trade of plumbing, electricians and stuff, and make a really good living. Kids don't want to do that because it's too hard. I got to work. Everything's on a platter for them nowadays, and it shouldn't be. The American dream back then, you got to work for it. It wasn't given to you on a silver platter. Okay, it wasn't. Here's your gold star for the day. There's none of that back then. You got your ass whooped from your parents who didn't do good in school. Now people are scared to discipline their kids because oh, it's child abuse. No, that's not child abuse. No, nowhere close. So how do you fix this, Rush? Is there a way to fix this system at all? I have hope, though, maybe the next president will do some good, maybe. We've been left with president after president who hasn't done crap for this country. You have the Bushes, you have Obama, and it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse, There's got to be some way to get back to good again, I mean, we can't always be top of the world. I mean, we take pride as Americans, though. We're the best in the world. No, we're not best in the world anymore in hardly anything, to be honest. You know, our school system's horrible. Our economy's basically a stack of cards waiting to fall down. It's based on nothing. Usually based on the gold standard. It's based on debt now. And eventually it's going to fall apart. And it needs to fall apart. You can't keep printing more money up to patch the wound, you know. Something has to change. But what? What do you think, Rush?
Honestly, the biggest problem I have with this, and looking back on my history, seeing so much of the American dream, not just going to the wayside, it's going to the next country. It's going to the other neighborhood. The volume of respect that were given to Americans, especially after World War II and 20 years before my time, but that's only 20 years. Look back in just our most recent history of what's happened to that American dream, how much it's changed. Where's it gone? Into the other country, into our neighbors. Was this our fault? Yes and no. You know, how are you going to validate, you know, relieving stress on your own system that you create? Because you go to work for someone or you work for yourself. The same idea implies you're looking to improve yourself. And, oh, good importance. Yeah, let's send it, you know, next door so they're doing well as well. But we don't know those people as well as we thought. And that's really diminished a lot of our credibility around the world because there's undermining systems already in place that's left this dream dragging in the wind, or the dirt, I should say.
I brought up too, before I give over to Liberty, is better than Jones's mentality. We're a very materialistic company. We're a materialistic country, basically. You go overseas and stuff, they care about their fellow man. Here, we're trying to do better than everybody else. You know, Johnny has a new Lexus. I need to get a better car than that. He has a bigger house than me. Honey, you need to get more money for your job. We need a bigger house. You know, everything's about material now, you know. Before, you get like a flat tire, someone always stop by and help you out. Nowadays, let's keep on driving. Nobody cares about anybody else anymore, it seems like, Rush. I mean, it's the me generation. Me, you know. I look out for me and nobody else. What happened to America? We used to be kind-hearted. We used to help each other out all the time. You know, we used to help out our fellow neighbor who's down their luck, or help out the old lady down the street who had problems getting her own groceries. We don't do it anymore. The family is broken up too. I mean, what is it now? 70% of all marriages end up in divorce now. You know, and then there's single parent families. That's not good for kids. American dream is dead in more ways than you think. You know, the core family's gone. One job for everybody's gone. Healthcare's down the tubes. Education's in the toilet. Our economy's just barely hanging on. We're a materialistic society. And that never lasts forever. You know, where's our heart at now? You know, it's just not about money and materialist things. What happened to us, Rush? We used to care about each other. You know, we used to help each other out. Look around you, man. It's not anymore. What happened to us, Rush?
No, that is the problem. We have been so distracted. We're been inundated with so much information. You try to think so quickly enough to, it's like, you know, trying to be natural and walking and rubbing your tummy and, you know, chewing bubble gum and do all that stuff at the same time. Damn near impossible if you don't get hit by a car afterwards. So you put that together with the idea that we're trying to maintain a certain aspect of normalcy. I don't even think that's a word. But given that, we've been so distracted. And this is why I find it so difficult to watch television. Granted, it's there. It's good for the right reasons if you feel that way. Other people soak it in like it's a part of themselves that they need to be, you know, so engaged with that they've lost all that focus of being sucked into the dream. Because the reality is that you're still looking at it from the other side of the screen. That's where you should be. And that's going, you should be questioning these things. Why are we not working better together? But we have tools to do that, and that's great. But they've been misused. And we, as people in general, and that's around the world, have been misused by these things that we've created to make our lives better. So the dream, it becomes the nightmare. Pretty much that's the way I look at it.
And one thing too I want to cover before I turn over to Liberty is as our technology grows, we're going to need less and less people to man the jobs. I mean, you can have a computer system now at McDonald's that takes your orders for you. Instead of paying Billy $15 an hour to take your order at McDonald's, you now have a touchscreen system. And I don't blame McDonald's, to be honest. Why should somebody who does flipping burgers or just takes your order make $15 an hour when you can have a computer system that does it for you? Or a grocery store where you have automatic checkout lanes. You scan them yourself and do it. Less people involved. So as we become more and more advanced, we're going to need less and less people to do these jobs. And that's going to affect the American dream, if there is one still. That's going to be a problem coming up, Rush, in the future in Liberty. Technology is going to take over many of these jobs. Robots. It's coming, folks. It's not a science fiction dream anymore. It's reality. They have robots now over in Japan who can pick up objects and communicate with humans and understand them. About 10 years, maybe less, you're going to see robots in the workforce. Not like the machine robots, like actual robots doing a human's job. Then what are we going to do? You guys think about that? What do you think, Liberty?
Well, I think that I think what happened to the American dream, I'm not sure if it was necessarily orchestrated, top down, Illuminati style, because why would anybody tank a cash cow like America? It doesn't make any sense. Obviously, they're going to want to dumb us down, and, pharmaceutical companies want us to be sick, and media companies want us to be programmed by their propaganda. Everybody's got a stake in controlling a little piece of each American citizen. And if you look at it from a technology standpoint, these are little viruses that utilize the host resources for an external program. So they are not the healthiest influences in our lives. I think that we have been on the target in a big way because we've been like the number one superpower in the world for I don't know how long, probably any time past World War II up until around the tech bubble, maybe still, I don't know. So we were a huge target on everybody's radar, and that just naturally brings out the hater in humans. That's just the Schadenfreude or whatever. I think organized education is on its way out. The whole unschooling trend is interesting. I think I know that from my personal perspective, from like pre-internet to post-internet, my life is 180 degrees different. I didn't know how hungry I was for knowledge until I got connected to the internet in like the mid to late 90s and could like Yahoo something and look up and get information for free. I never set the internet down from that point. I've been on it every single day, I bet, since day one. So I think that we hinder more than we help by demanding that all children learn at the same rate and capacity. And if you think about how outdated these systems are, or at least how old they are, how antiquated, this has mostly been set up by like churches that were through charity, like in 1600s, before that, educating children. So this is like in an era where they just built a huge building and put people in it. That's how most of our shit is organized. Like if you've got a company, you've got a big building with cubes, or a factory. If you're at a place of worship, you've got a huge church with just a bunch of people in a room. If you're in the military, you've got barracks with a bunch of people in the same room. If you go to school, people in a bunch of people in the same room. Prison, like all these systems are tied back like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So as we've got technology in our lives that brings discipline to our thinking and I think that'll help us mend and update a lot of these systems and make them more efficient and more effective. Specifically, education being one of those. Like the one-size-fits-all routine is it's bordering on a human rights violation to not allow children to learn at their own rate. The more we begin to learn as we begin to understand how children learn. So, we also keep in mind that this is a petroleum economy that we're in. So at any time, I'm not sure if we've ever gotten any accurate information on exactly how much oil is left in the world, or if anybody knows. But I know that when it disappears, there's going to be what's known as a population bubble bursting, and things are going to get a lot more simple. And we'll have to see how everything works out with that. I don't necessarily think that's the coming collapse or anything like that, but we've hemmed all of our bets on a non-renewable resource that will eventually run out, that we've been using hand over fist for a long time, and at some point will run out. So we need to think in terms of that, and I think that technology is going to be something that helps us deal with the passing from our economy being tied to the petroleum dollar to our economy being maybe tied to labor, how much your labor is worth, getting back to something like that. Technology is a communication tool, super communication tool. We can talk to anybody around the world, like anytime we want. We've got a device where we can communicate with anyone, practically anywhere in the world immediately, and that's advantages from system upgrades like that take generations to really express sometimes. So I think that we're just at the ground floor of it being good and about to get a shitload better. The automation that we're complaining about taking our jobs and stuff, at the same time, that's going to give us a buttload of free time that whether we want to or not, we need to take, and we need to heal ourselves, and we need to get back to feeding ourselves and arts, like taking time to it doesn't have to be boredom versus work versus sleep or intoxication. There are other spectrums that we can inhabit in life that can be very rewarding and satisfying and make people happy. And then because we've pushed so hard to get to this point, we're the leader in all of the technology. I'm pretty sure there are ways that people are imitating it better and ways that people are taking our innovations and furthering them, but most of the hardcore innovations in technology have come out of America, and hopefully we're paying the high cost of innovating right now, and hopefully we'll reap that benefit first and be able to spread that. I mean, that's essentially what the American dream is. It's not totally just contained within the boundaries of the country known as the United States. This is something that's like democracy or education or anything that can spread to other countries and just be.
Words before we close this out?
Yeah. Given it's still the individual person that's going after that dream, and we've talked about a lot of things that really influences us to help us kind of focus that dream, and the lack of education that we, as older people, look at going, this is more important than this to make that happen. But those outside influences are still there constantly, as I pointed out, with commercials and focus with the technology, and it all sounds wonderful. It's a dream that most people want to have, to feel good, be fit, have the nice car, have the nice home. It's still obtainable if you give up a lot of things. And that's your moral compass talking. And if you don't have one, you should get yourself one. That's about all I got. But thanks, Luke.
Thank you, Rush and Liberty. And we went over the American dream, how it's changed throughout the years, and how it's no longer exists, basically, in the way it used to. The ways it can be fixed, if it can be fixed. Well, the challenge will be in the future of technology, competing with technology and robots and other units. I mean, it's scary, and it's coming up, folks. You have touch screens in McDonald's now taking your orders. You have gas stations now that have touch screens that you push your order in, and one human being actually makes your order for you, for now. As time goes on, these jobs will be replaced by robots. You know? Then what? I think I have hope, though, maybe the next president, whoever gets in, maybe things will change a little bit for the better. Whether it be Trump, Hillary, or maybe one of the other candidates. We shall see. But we've talked about this subject for an hour and 15 minutes, and it's time to close it up. And hopefully the dream comes back. It doesn't turn into a nightmare. This Friday will be an epic double chat. 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Special guests and co-hosts, Ghost Scientists, will go over the Philadelphia experiment and Montauk. And this stuff will actually blow your mind and chill your soul. Be there for it. Thank you for showing up, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.